Okay, so now this next video I wanted to show you, this one's going to anger some people. So off we go. We got two basic kinds of wrenches you're going to deal with, which is SAE, that's your inch, your fractional, and your metric. Right. But there's a lot of sizes that are really close to each other. Now, if you're buying really good high-end wrenches, then the 3/4 inch wrench is going to fit your 3/4 inch hex better than anything else. But in the real world, where a guy might have a Popular Mechanics and a Snap-on and a Benchtop and a Craftsman and a Trades Pro, where your wrenches are sort of gathered piecemeal, then you're going to be in some situations where you'll find out that maybe your correct wrench for the job isn't the best wrench for the job. Let's see what I mean here. Go down to this end. An 8mm wrench, 8 millimeters is 0.315 inches. The 5/16 is 0.312 inches, which means if that's a good quality wrench, that's going to be about 3 thousandths bigger than the 8mm. So if you've got an 8mm hex, let's say in a bleed screw of a Japanese motorcycle, then the 8mm, which is slightly smaller, slightly larger, might not fit as snugly as the 5/16. So there's an application where a 5/16 might be a better wrench to use in a lower quality wrench. Well, this one's a Craftsman. They're not mega high end, but Craftsman's a good solid wrench. But there's a few situations like that where you might get a snugger fit to your wrench putting this 5/16 on an 8mm bolt head than if you actually use the 8mm, because it's 0.315 and the 5/16 is 0.3125. Same thing happens up here around the 11mm. The 7/16, this is a real low quality wrench here, some generic forged alloy. Really, it's an awful wrench, but in 7/16, that's 0.4375 inches, whereas the 11mm is 0.433. So if you've got a 7/16 hex bolt head, that 11mm is slightly smaller and might actually fit better for you. I will continue on. 13mm and 1/2, or a little bit. The 13mm, that's 0.5118 inches, and the 1/2 inch is 0.500. So if your 1/2 inch wrench still fits the 13mm, it gives you a good idea how loose it's fitting a 1/2 inch. But the 13mm will fit on the 1/2 inch hex bolts, but now you're going to have almost 12 thousandths of play. On the other hand, if that 1/2 incher fits on your 13mm, it just tells you you've got a pretty loose fit wrench there. Up here to the 14mm and the 9/16. 14mm is 0.551 and 2/10 thousandths, whereas the 9/16 is 0.562. However, I find a lot of times where my 14mm will fit on the bolt heads that should be 9/16, which means that 14mm is actually going to fit snugger on the bolt than my 9/16 wrench clearances. And this happens one more time between the 19mm and the 3/4 inch. In this case, there's only 2 thousandths difference between the two. 748 for the 19mm, 0.748 inches, and 0.750. So if the 19mm will go on your 3/4 inch hex, it's going to be a snugger fit. And you want the snugger fit so that if you're really wrenching on stuff, you're not going to strip the heads off the corners off of your bolt. It's going to loosen or tighten better for you if your wrench better fits your hex. But because we're not working with incredibly expensive wrenches, there's going to be some times when that 19mm is going to fit your 3/4 inch hex better. We're going to have some situations where your 1/2 inch is going to fit I guess we get 13 here, where your 1/2 inch is going to fit your 13 millimeter bolt heads better. We're going to have some situations where your 14 millimeter is going to fit your 9/16 bolt heads better. This happens, but knowing what your conversion is between your fraction and your metric equivalent, that's going to help you too. Anyway, hope that helps you find the right tool, the right wrench, and if it's not, there's some machines out there like Harley Davidson and my GMC pickup truck for that matter, where you're going to have SAE and metric on the same machine. In the case of Harley Davidson, there were several situations where one end of the same component was inch, the other end of that component was millimeters. Thankfully, they were 14 millimeter 9/16, so most people didn't realize that one end was metric and one end was inch. But being able to convert between those two is going to be helpful for you, and I hope those overlaps kind of help you as you're turning wrenches and fixing stuff. Good luck, everyone.